Before anything else, I would like just to start with a very short prayer. Actually, I do this prayer anywhere I go. It doesn't matter if I'm talking in a conference, in a temple, in a school. It doesn't matter where I am. I always start with this short prayer. In this prayer, I remember the name and the qualities of my teachers, my masters, and the masters of my masters. Because in Buddhism, it's very important for us to have gratitude towards those that have taught us. And if there is anything that I can share with you today, it's because someone taught me. So wherever I go, I start with this first short prayer. The first part of the prayer is in Tibetan, the second part is in Sanskrit. Okay? Locho sampo pa gyo trashi pa tuche tempe trile yarngo da pege drolor tsampe tsepar che palden lame shabla solvade Omo a guru vajra dara sumati munisha sane karma uta vardanya shri badra varsa manya sarva siddhi hum Pakyuke kudan dagi lo pakyuke sundan dagi nga Pakyuke tudan dagi tenyerme chikto jingilo Makyuke kudan dagi lo makyuke sundan dagi nga Makyuke tudan dagi Chikto jingilo Om Muni Muni Maha Muni Shakya Muni Swaha. Okay. First of all, I would like to say that I'm very happy to be here today, to have this opportunity to have a feeling to be within friends. Friends of our friends are always good friends. And to have this time together to share something. You know? For me, I've had this opportunity in my life really to dedicate the time that I have for what I really love. So I think this is something very precious. This is something I'm very fortunate in this sense. And I would like just to share something with you. I'm not here today to teach anything to anyone. I'm not here to come and to take, okay, we could do some very technical courses on Buddhist philosophy and there are things. I studied in a very academical way when I studied Buddhism also. But I'm not here to teach anything today. I'm here just to share with you some thoughts, some aspects of my life that are very helpful to myself. And I think they can be helpful to you also. Okay? As you know, many of you know, I come from Brazil. My family from the side of my father is a Jewish family, traditional Jewish family. My grandfathers came, my grandmother was born in Austria, my grandfather was born in Germany. They both escaped when they were young at the Second World War. So from the side of my father is a traditional Jewish family. From the side of my mother, I come from a traditional Presbyterian family. So Christian Presbyterian family. And so since I was small, I always had different type of education. Sometimes I would go to the synagogue, sometimes I would go to the church. And but when I was actually quite small, I met for the first time my teacher, my source of my inspiration, which is Lama Gangchen. And I could say that what really changed my life since the beginning, what gave me the direction for what I do up to now, is the actual true life example of a person in a state of balance, joy, satisfaction. You know? I think One time I was in a meeting, actually a family gathering. It was a dinner before the marriage of a cousin in New York, Jewish cousin. And then when we were there, someone from the Jewish part of the family asked me, why you didn't become a rabbi? I said, most probably because the person that I met that has been an example for me was a Buddhist Tibetan Lama. If it was a rabbi, most probably I would have gone that way. Because when I started to follow this path, I hadn't really no idea about the philosophy itself. Even though I always liked it very much as soon as I started to learn. But in all these years, I have had the opportunity to travel to many, many different places. I've come from Brazil. I lived in India for 12 years in a Tibetan refugee camp, which is not a very nice place actually, a big monastic university, 4,000 monks. After that, I've been living in Europe now for more than 10 years. I've traveled to many places in Asia, I went to Africa, went to South America, and many places. And I think maybe one of the qualities I can say that I may have is to be curious. To like to look at things, listen to people, understand what is happening, question always things. But there is one thing that I have found very clear to me. Anywhere I went, human beings are very, very similar. You know? When we read texts which were written 2,000 years ago, 2,500 years ago by Buddha, or 1,500 years ago, for example, from a great master called Shantideva, and we read these texts, and they talk exactly about us nowadays. The people of that time, they were not that different from what we are now. Our main concerns, our difficulties, our resources, they were basically the same. You know? And it doesn't matter where I go, if I am in a big city like São Paulo, where I come from, or if I am in the middle of the monastery in Tibet, where I go often. When you start listening to people's complaints and concerns and difficulties and the resources they have to deal with them are basically the same. So one thing which for me has been very clear, it doesn't matter where we come from. It doesn't matter what is our culture, what is our education. It doesn't matter what is our social status. We are all the same from the point of view that we all suffer. We all want to be happy. We want to avoid suffering as much as we can. And the most important for me is every one of us, we do everything we do thinking it is the best for our own happiness. It doesn't matter if I dedicate my life to politics, or if I dedicate my life to sports, or if I want to dedicate my life to arts, or if I want to go to a little cave in the middle of the mountain to meditate my whole life, or if I want to dedicate my life for doing nothing. I do what I do because I think that that's the best for my own happiness, guided although by my own ignorance. That's what we do. Each and every one of us. It doesn't matter where we come from. It doesn't matter our age. It doesn't matter our culture, our education. There is a strength, a very strong force inside every one of us that makes us to do every action we do. This force is this wish to be happy, which is actually the same thing that the wish not to suffer. It's two sides of the same thing. The wish, this strong, there is a word in Tibetan we call sepa. It's difficult to translate. In Italian we use the word brahma, which is not a wish, it's like a spontaneous desire. It's something much deeper than a wish. It's a strength, a force that drives us to do everything we do. Why I do that basically is because I don't want to suffer and I want to be happy. This is what is behind everything that we do. It doesn't matter where we come from, it doesn't matter our culture, it doesn't matter any of this. So, after all of this, you know, when I was around 18, I was living in the monastery already for 6 years. And I came with a question. I was actually in a moment of somehow, I could say I was a little bit in a moment of crisis. Because I was asking myself, what am I doing here in the monastery? I loved the life in the monastery. I really like it. It's a little bit like military style. You know, a lot of discipline, many hours of study every day, and so on. It's true I quit school when I was 12, but I went on to study much more than I would ever imagine. But the question that I had is, okay, what am I doing? Why am I here? You know, I am Brazilian, I come from a different culture, and I try very often to look at things from different perspectives. Try not to be completely closed into one view. And finally, I got to one conclusion, which for me, nowadays, let's say, is something that drives me on my way, guides me, is there is one basic rule for me, one basic, let's say, law, one rule to follow. Do whatever you do. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as it works. What does it mean, it works? If it makes me truly happy or not. So here we come to a very fundamental question. What is happiness? I was talking some time ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, with one friend. She was making one thesis for her university master on the economics, economy of development on developing countries. So as we were talking about it, I was helping her a little bit with the thesis. And then we came about one question I made her. I said, what's the goal of economy? What's the reason of economy? What's the final goal of it? So going through it, we came out that, okay, the reason why the whole economic system works and exists is in order for the well-being of human beings. What is the ultimate well-being of human beings? It's happiness. So what is happiness? So if happiness is the final goal of economy, what is happiness? Have you ever found anywhere a definition of happiness in any books on economy and so on? She said, never ever. So it means we have a whole system which is dedicated for something that we don't know what it is. Okay? And even the definition of economy itself is already quite shocking. The definition of economy, the one that most people learn in university, is that economy is the science that makes finite resources to satisfy the infinite wishes of human beings. Okay? So it's already crazy by itself. Okay? To imagine that there can be something that can satisfy something that is finite, that is finishes, that can satisfy something that is infinite is already crazy. The idea that you can satisfy something that is infinite. That's already a crazy idea. But why am I talking about that? Because it comes to the question, what is happiness? And we live in a moment in our societies, not only in the West, but also in the East, in the whole modern world, which more and more we have this idea that to be happy, I must have what I want, when I want, how I want. And that happiness is fully connected to a material development. We believe in what I like to call the material utopia, which means we believe that it's possible to be truly happy only through a material development. But the question is it possible? Okay, because it doesn't matter what you do. The important thing is that it really works. So I started to look around myself. And I come from a family where money was never really a problem. So I have seen people around me with a lot of money and people with wealth, but they were not so happy. Still today, they are not that happy. Very nice people, huh? But always some problem there. When I look around, I know people that have money enough for this life and for the next 10 lives if they could take the money with them. Are they really satisfied in their life? No. So one thing came very clear to me when I was analyzing. I said, okay, what works? Does money really work? Does money make people happy? Can money bring happiness to people? Yes or no? I believe yes, up to a certain point. If you don't have food, if you are hungry constantly, it's very difficult to ask someone to meditate when the person is very hungry. If you cannot take care of your health, if you don't have a place to shelter yourself from heat and cold and water, if you don't have the minimum basic needs, difficultly you will have this inner space necessary to reflect upon your own deeper aspects. So there is a minimum necessary. Above this minimum necessary, it doesn't matter how much more you have, it won't make any difference. It won't make you happier. So, what happens is, what should we do then? Because, okay, the important thing is what really works. And what is proposed to most of us in society, from my point of view, from what I have seen, from what I have received, from whenever time you turn on the television, you open the newspaper, what is being proposed to us as a way to be happy, or even as happiness itself, it's not sustainable. It's something that we gain for a moment, and then right away, what happens? It fades. One time I was called in Italy to talk to a school. And I like very much talking with kids also. But this time was a little different because normally they are around 13 to 19. That's the age normally. But that time I was called to the school and I arrived there. There were like 200 kids, but we were around 5 to 6 years old. So I said to myself, what am I going to do now? How long do I need to talk? They said I have an hour and a half. Okay, how am I going to entertain all these kids for an hour and a half? I said, okay, they call me to talk about Buddhism. Let's go, the Four Noble Truths. So I found a way how to talk to them more simple way. It was an amazing experience. And one point, after maybe half an hour, I had already some sort of friendship with the kids. I asked them, I was explaining them the causes of suffering. So I asked the kids, is there any toy you would like to have? And they said, yes. They all answered me. They said, yes. Okay, have it ever happened, maybe during Christmas or at your birthday, that you got the toy that you wanted? They all said, yes. Were you happy? Yes. How long did your happiness last? Long or short? They all said, short, not so happily. Do you still have the toy? Yes, we do. Does it still make you happy as before? No. Do you want another toy? Yes. Okay. The next toy, how long is going to make you happy? I asked them again. You get the next toy, how long is going to make you happy? And what was the answer they gave me? They were not so happy about the answer they were giving me. They were a little bit like this, but they said, short. They were not special kids, okay? Since we are all young, we know that material things are not going to make us happy. But we don't know another way. It's like we change the toy, but we don't change the game. Because we are never taught another way of playing. So I always remember when I say this, I was to another extreme one time. I was together with a friend that is a very rich man, and we were going to a little town, and we were going on his private jet. So he looked to me in front of his private airplane, and he said, the only difference between big and small boys is the size of their toys. Finally, you are there trying to be happy, changing the toy. And we do this the whole life. Does it work, really? No. Okay. So I came to a conclusion, which I don't want to go too much into details about some things because we don't have that much time. After looking at all of this, first of all, understand one fundamental question that we need to make to ourselves. What is happiness? What do I want in life? I think that's a question that we must put to ourselves, independently of what other people are telling us, independently of what is our philosophical view. I really, in this moment, what I'm saying is like, it doesn't matter what Buddhism tells me that is happiness. What do I think is happiness? Okay? I have the deepest respect to the teachings of Buddha. But what really matters at this moment is what do I see as happiness? Because that's the direction in which I am going to put my own energy. Otherwise, I can say, oh yes, I believe I must reach enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and that's the main goal that I must have in my life because that's what my teachers taught me in Buddhism. But then maybe I am still projecting my own happiness into having power and influence and being recognized by others and so on. So I am intellectually telling myself I want enlightenment, but truly I don't want it. Is it clear? So the question is, independently of what is my culture, what is my education, what is my religion, what is the labels that I put in myself, what do I really want? And very often, we will get the answer, I don't know. That's the answer very often we'll get because we never make this question very clearly to ourselves. Some time ago, I was talking to a friend, new friend actually, and I like also to dedicate for him. He passed away a few months ago. I met him because of his sickness. He came to talk to me. His name was Ricardo de la Rosa. He was one of the best the directors of photography in Brazil. So he came to talk to me. I met him, and he died very young. He was, I think, 45 or something like that. And he came to talk to me one day. And when we were talking together, I somehow got this inspiration and to see things that I always saw, but from a different perspective, to put them together in a different way. And it was something that, for me, it was very important. And we had a very nice talk. It's this moment, sometimes in life it happens that in a very short time you can create a deeper friendship with a person, even if you don't know each other so well. When there is truly love and you are really sincere with each other. And what came to my mind is the following. There are three things that are important in life. 3 points in which we need to put our energy. And I believe for me, happiness, in order for me to be happy, which before explaining these 3 points, my own idea of happiness is to be in harmony with myself and others, which means not being in conflict. If the other is in conflict with me, I cannot do much, but I shouldn't be in conflict with others. So I myself, for myself to be in harmony with myself and others, with the world around me, independently of where I am, with whom I am, in what situation I find myself. Because if my own happiness needs to depend on other people around me, if my own state of happiness and harmony needs to depend on the place where I am, on the situation I am, then I have no much choice. So, for me, it's a state that comes from within. But in order to do that, there are 3 points that I found out for me that are very important that I would like to share with you today. It's like, what is important to do in life? For me, there are these 3 points. The first one is we need to take good care of this life, which is what most of us already try to do. We have a body, we need to take good care of the body, so we need to eat well, we need to do exercise, we need to do anything which is necessary to keep our health correctly. We have responsibilities with other people, family, friends, work, society. We need to keep our responsibilities, keep this positive interdependence that we have with other people around us. We need at the same time to respect the environment. We need to take care of this life, basically. So, how to take good care of this life, it's a long subject. And that's what most of us normally talk about. That's what we listen mostly about. It's okay, how to take care of their health, how to take care of society, how to do things in a way that things function correctly and things go in a more harmonious way in our daily life. Okay? So yes, we have this body, we have this life, we must take good care of this life. And for me, it means doing my best. It doesn't matter what I do. I need to do my best. My best doesn't mean it needs to be perfect. It means I must put the best of my energy in a sincere way in everything I do. I go to meet one person, and I have my full energy towards that person. I look at the eyes of the person. I talk to them. I listen to him. I do my best in that moment that I have. Am I going to do mistakes? Sure. No doubt. But I'm still doing my best. And I will learn with my mistakes and I will go on. So that's, for me, one important point. Because sometimes I see that we have the tendency to go from one extreme to another, no? So we go out from one extreme in which we only think about this, taking care of this life, and then suddenly we say, no, the important thing is the spiritual part and what transcends this life. Then we completely forget this life things. And we only go to much more, how to say, the word is not coming, but like not so concrete things, more, let's call spiritual, it's not the right word, but things that go beyond our material. So I'm going to talk about high philosophy and more mystical things, and I go to another level, and I'm not taking care anymore of what I eat, of the society around me. I don't take care anymore about the, let's call, mundane things. But I have a body made of flesh. I walk in this, I breathe this air, I drink the water. I must take care of this world. I am here, I relate to people around me. I am not independent of the society and everyone around me. So I must be a good part of it. So we have first point, we have a life, let's take good care of it. Okay? We have this body, we need to take good care of it in the best of our abilities. But this part, I think each one is already doing, most of us, we are normally already doing it in the best of our abilities. Sure, there is always something that we can make better, but we already do. Then there is the second point. The second point is, okay, I must take good care of this life, but that's not enough. I must make this life a meaningful life. This life must be meaningful. I cannot waste it. I can have perfect health. I can have a very nice clean house. I can have good relation with my friends and family. But if I only live this life to survive, I'm not making this life meaningful. And this remembers me one time, one of my teachers called Genhakpala. He told me something, it's a little bit extreme, but it helps us to understand what I want to say. We were in the monastery, and there, it is in the middle of the fields. It's the very, very, very much into the, far away from the city, in the countryside, in the very, very countryside of India. So it's full of cows around and a plantation of corns. And then one day we were there and there were some cows going. And then he looked at the cows and he said, you know, if you don't make your life meaningful, there is no difference between you and a cow. I said, why? He said, if you only live this life to survive, if you pass your life just trying to avoid suffering and to gain pleasure, there is no difference between you and a cow. He said, look at a cow. You see, there is a strong sun there. Where there is a strong sun, what does the cow do? The cow chooses to stay in the sun or go under the shadow? Goes on the shadow, under the shadow. Why? Because the cow does its best to avoid suffering. When the cow is eating the grass, there is one place where the grass is very green and nice, and the other place the grass is very dry. Which grass is the cow going to eat? The green one. So does the cow share pleasure? Wishes to get more pleasure? Yes, the cow is choosing to get more pleasure. So what he was saying is that if you dedicate your life only to avoid suffering and gain pleasure, there is no difference between you and a cow. You are just more sophisticated. Okay, maybe you choose a different wine, or a better restaurant, or try to avoid suffering having air condition or central heating or whatever. But if we pass our whole life only avoiding suffering and trying to gain pleasure, we are simply surviving. We are wasting this life. And here comes for me a difference. We can live the life in two ways. Or we can live our life only to survive, and we can get busy with many things that we think we are busy in our life, we are running and running to do many things, but actually we are not going anywhere. We are just running. It's like these crazy things that we have nowadays that people just run and they don't go anywhere, no? For me, it's really strange. Until now, I cannot really enter so well in my mind this, how do you call it in English, the academy, where people go to do exercise? No? The gym. When you go to the gym, and then you see all these people, they're just running and not getting anywhere. And sometimes in the city, I don't know if you're here in Holland, they have a big, like a glass window. And then you see all the people there just running and getting nowhere.
Yeah, I like that.
It's really...
I hate it.
But for me, it's somehow a metaphor what many of us are doing. No? What many of us would do, we run. When I came from the monastery to live in Europe, I understood one thing, which after some time that I was here, I started to be very busy. And people ask, oh, then I have no time. And I understood one thing, to have time was not cool. It's not nice if you have time. If you have time, it means you are no one. If you have time, it means you are not important. So you don't matter much. So you cannot have time available. You must be busy in order to be someone. And I was looking that it was not true that I had no time. I was simply choosing to put my time in a different place. So do I have time? Yes, I have. But my priority is this instead of that. It's a different attitude that we put. But the point that I want to bring is that very often we run, and where do we get? Nowhere. Why? Because we have nowhere to go. We don't know even where we want to go. So that's why it's so important for us to understand what is happiness, what do I want. So here, there is these two basic choices that we can do in life. Do I want to live this life only to survive? Or do I want to live this life to make this life meaningful? We have this choice. And I think we could divide most of us by these two sort of categories. Okay? And what does it mean to live this life only to survive? We pass the whole life avoiding suffering, gaining pleasure, solving problems. But everything that we do is like a goal by itself. It's not a method to gain something, to get somewhere. Okay? And I see many people with a sort of a life that, I'm sorry to be very direct, but it's a little bit sad when I see the people that take a lot of time on the work, which is okay, it's good. We need to take care of this life, was the first point. For that I need to work, I need to pay the bills. But very often the work is not something that it has some sort of meaning. So I just do the work because I need to pay my bills. Sure, all of us, we have conflicts. And then what happens very often, people get home, they have their own conflicts. Instead of dealing with the conflicts and using the conflicts and the difficulties to grow and become a better person, they run away from them. Maybe they smoke something, they drink something, they turn on the TV, and life passes by. Between one reality show and the other, people forget to live their own life. You know, nowadays they have reality shows on the television. Not long ago, the reality show was the gossiping on the street. What the other person did, what is the life of this, the life of that. So very often, when we don't have enough, when we are not busy enough making our life meaningful, finally we live the life of other people. Looking at other people, what he did, what the other one did. What is the magazines that sells the most? Gossip magazines. So very often, there is this way of living our life, which is we just survive. One day is gone, another day is gone, another day is gone. It's a choice. Personally, I don't like it. But it's a choice. No, if we want to just live our life to survive and we live it in a way that is harmonious with other people, okay, no problem. But I personally don't fit in it. So there is the other way, which is let's make this life meaningful. How do I do it? What does it mean to have this life meaningful? And here, for me, making it simple, it is like this. In order for me to have this life meaningful, I must at least die a better person than I was born. It's the minimum I need to do. Because what is the meaning? What does it mean for me to make this life meaningful? It means that I can give something to others. and I can grow and become a better person myself. In the moment that I can share, I can give, I can do something that I help others to be more happy. And at the same time that I myself, gradually as life goes on, I am able to be more and more happy, more and more satisfied, and to live in a more harmonious way with others, I am making my life meaningful. So, from this, it comes the question, how do I make this life meaningful? And personally, I found the answer inside Buddha's teachings. And I like just to try to share with you in a very simple way. Okay? The first point we have already gone through, which is, what is my present situation? It's very important to understand. It's like if we have someone that is sick, if we are sick, before we go to the doctor, we need to be clear about the symptoms that we have. So what is the sickness I have? What are the symptoms? In which situation I am? Once it's clear for me what I have, then I can go on to find what are the causes. I can see if I can get cured. And after that, I can see what's the treatment that I need to follow. But first, I need to be sure I am sick. So what is the first diagnosis somehow that I have? I suffer, first of all. We have two main types of suffering. Physical suffering and mental suffering. Which suffering we have mostly here? Physical or mental? Mental, right? We share it? Okay. One of the teachers of Lama Gangchen, his name was Kitlyn Tjin A Djie. I listened to one of his teachings. He was very direct. And he was saying the suffering are two. The suffering of body and the suffering of mind. Poor people suffer mostly of the suffering of body. Rich people suffer mostly of the suffering of mind. By the end of the day, they suffer in the same way. If we think, for the suffering of body, where do we need to look for solutions? In the mind or in the body? I would say, if I am hungry, what do I need to do? I need to eat. Okay, if I am a very highly realized meditator, sure, I can help myself by meditating. But otherwise, for most of us, if I am hungry, what do I need? I need food, right? If I am sick, what I need a doctor, I need medicine. If it's too hot, what do? I need to get a place where it's more cool. If it's too cold, I need to cover myself, I need to have heating. So for the physical suffering, what type of solution do we need? Physical. And for the mental suffering, what type of solution do we need? Physical or mental? Material or mental? It would be mental, right? Where do we look for the solutions for our mental suffering? In the mind or in the body and external things? No, I am sad, what I do? I go to buy a new pair of shoes. I am sad, what I do? I am sad, what I do? Oh, I need to find a person that smiles to me. Oh, I go to walk on a beautiful park. I am unsatisfied, what I do? I need to get something more. I am angry, I need to get away of my object of anger and find someone that I like, and I need to be on a secure place. If we look for our mental suffering, normally we don't look for the solution in our mind. Most of the times we're looking for the solutions outside. Does it work really? No. That's why we are running without moving. It's like going again and again on the same place. Momentarily it works, yes, but not on a long term. Okay? And this always reminds me one short story which I like very much. It's a story which I was taught this story 2 times. Once by a rabbi, another time by an imam, Muslim. So I don't know really if it's an Arab Muslim story or if it's a Jewish story. It's not a Buddhist story, but it fits. The story is like this. Let's say one day we are walking on a road, a very narrow road, okay, dark, in the night without the moon. And then on top of this road, we arrive at, and suddenly there is a point with a light. And under this light, there is a man searching for something. And he's searching for it very desperately. He's looking and looking and looking and looking. And we look at him and we see that he's very desperate. And we ask him, sorry, can I help you? And he said, oh yes, please, I lost the keys of my house. I cannot go back home. And this is a real big problem. I must go back home. Can you help me to look for the keys? I said, sure. So we go there and we start looking for the keys around. And after some time, we cannot find anything. So we go to the man and we say, excuse me, where have you lost your keys? He said, oh, I lost it down the road. Why are you looking for the keys here? Oh, because there is too dark. Here at least I have some light. Okay. Looking for the right thing in the wrong place doesn't work. So, if I have insatisfaction, if I am sad, if I have jealousy, if I have envy, if I have any other inner conflict which generates suffering of mind, I can look as hard as I want to find a solution in a beautiful house, with a beautiful couple, with nice children, with a beautiful job, with everything nice around me. It will not work. Nothing against all of this, huh? You can have the most nice house with a nice husband or wife, with nice kids, very good job. Everything, all of this is wonderful. It's part of the first part which I said, take good care of this life. But is it enough? Will it solve our inner conflicts? No. And this is very clear for us, because it doesn't matter how many problems we solve, are we still unsatisfied? Yes, it doesn't matter how beautiful our house is and how nicely we are dressed, and it doesn't matter all of this, finally we are still unsatisfied. The most satisfied and happy people I ever met today, up to now, are people that were extremely simple, that they were well, it didn't matter where they were. They were simply happy. Even when there were big problems. One of them was this teacher that I was talking about before, Genlakpala. Even when he got a tumor in the esophagus, you say in English? In the esophagus. In his last 2 years of life, he was still always smiling. He said, okay, it's my time to die, let's wait. He was fine. It didn't matter where he was going, he was happy. Even I asked one time, which were the best years of your life? He said, oh, one of the best years of my life were from the 60s to the 70s. I said, well, wait, that time you were in the north of India, in a sort of a place where before was an ex-jail. You had no food. 80% of the people living there had tuberculosis. He said, it's true. To sleep means just laying down on the floor. There was no bed. He said, it's true. But at that time, there was such more harmony between us. And we were so happy. Our life was mainly dedicated for meditation and philosophy. We had no other worries. And we were simply happy. And actually, I believe he was happy everywhere he went, basically. Did he have problems? Sure. We all have problems. But the point is that what really brings us to the state of balance and satisfaction is not the external conditions. And I think this is quite clear for us, right? So, the second point is, we all look for pleasures. We like pleasures, right? If I am thirsty and I drink water, would it make me happy? It's nice, no? So it brings me pleasure when I drink water if I am very thirsty? For all of us. But if I continue drinking the same water, and I go on one glass after the other, because I want to keep the pleasure. I like so much pleasure. I don't want to give it away. I want more pleasure. So what I do, I continue to drink water. What happened after the second liter of water? The more water I drink, does it keep the same sensation of pleasure or not? After some time, what it becomes? A cause of suffering. This is the same for every pleasure we may have. It's the same for material things. It doesn't matter how much I have, it's never going to be able to keep the sensation of satisfaction. Finally, what are we attached to? To the water or the sensation of pleasure that I have? What do we want really? The sensation. But the material things, they cannot keep this sensation for long. Only one moment. The same thing is if people recognize us, no? For me, one classical thing that I see many times happening is someone come to me and say, come to anyone and say, oh, look, that person said something nice about you. And it's someone that we really like, the person that said it. No? So what's the answer that we give very often we listen people saying? Oh, sorry, I didn't listen well. Can you repeat? Sure, we understood it perfectly, but it's a sort of a massage for our ego, no? So we really like it. But if we start to receive the same thing again and again, the same compliment, after some time it makes no more effect. Okay? So we cannot base our satisfaction in life into gaining pleasures, material things, or recognition. And the last point is that I have nowhere to escape. I can change family, I can change house, I can change job, I can even change my body, the way how I look. I can change country. I cannot escape from myself. No, I can take vacation from many things, but not from myself. Sometimes some people came to me and say, I want to take a vacation from myself. Sorry, that's not possible. Okay? So for example, if let's say I am a very envy person, and I am in my job, and I look to someone and say, oh, he works less and he gets a better pay, how that's possible, and this and that. So finally I get away of everything, and I go to a little hut in the middle of a forest to meditate, and I'm finally alone in the middle of the nature. And then finally what happens? I'm envy of the little birds. Look at them. You know, they have company, I don't have company, here I am alone. We take our own habits, our own mental, emotional habits, everywhere we go. So if I do not change myself, I will continue to suffer and to be in conflict. It doesn't matter where I go with whom I am. Okay? So then here comes the second point. Why do I suffer? Who's to blame? And here comes one thing very strong from our culture. We always, not always, but most of the times, we look for one cause of our suffering. If there is a problem, if there is a difficulty, who is the one to blame? And because we look for one cause of the problem, we also look for one solution. Is there any problem that any one of us ever had that was created by only one cause? I have never seen it. I don't know, just to make an example. You know, I don't know much about Dutch history and so on. I am from Brazil. Okay, but when you go in Brazil and people complain, you go on the streets and there is a lot of violence in the cities. Where is this violence coming from? Oh, because we go and normally we point a finger directly to the person that is there, that is doing the violence. But if we look, why is this happening? We go back and back. That Brazil, for example, was one of the last countries to abolish slavery. And when slavery was abolished in Brazil, it was just officially abolished because they made a way in the end of the 1800s that the slaves continued to be paid slaves. And this social difference, the stigma, is still there up to now. And there is a sort of anger, there is a very deeper conflict between parts of society that is coming from a lot of violence that we have hundreds of years of history. And all of this will get the results up to today. When things happen, it's not coming just from the momentary cause. There are many, 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 many causes that accumulate and relate. They're interdependent. And we see the results. For example, we are here today talking, right? Why? How many causes and conditions were necessary for this moment to exist as it exists? Okay, Lama Gangchen needed to have left Tibet in 1963. Somehow he needed to go to Europe in the beginning of the 80s. My mother needed to have a friend called Professor Shahet that was invited to her 30 years birthday. And then he asked her, oh, would you like to help to invite a Tibetan Lama to Brazil? And she said yes. Maybe she could have said no. If at that date she said no, most probably I would not be here today. Okay. If we try to tell the story, the history of this moment, for each and every one of us, how come we are here? It will take centuries to tell the story of this moment. And the most interesting thing for me is that there are many, many, many very small actions in the life of every one of us. Words that were said, way how people listen, thoughts that passed through people's mind, choices that were made, that if it was not for that words or that choices or that thoughts, this moment would not exist as it exists. So one thing that is very clear is that nothing happens because of only one cause. And because of that, solution cannot be only in one solution. And solution very often is not short-term, it's middle, long-term solutions also. Especially when we talk about things about society and so on. Okay? So, looking at this, what happened is that why do I suffer? Normally when we suffer, do we have someone or somewhere who to blame? Yes, no? But if we really look deeper, our suffering is coming from our attraction, from our aversion, anger, hatred, jealousy, miserliness, insatisfaction, desire, attachment. Does the same situation always make us suffer in the same way? No. If it would, then it would be much more simple. No? But it's not like that. My own experience, that's what Buddha taught, but I personally believe it based on my experience, is that the suffering is not coming from external conditions, but from internal conditions. Our suffering is coming from our own conflicts. And it basically works in this way. On the root, we are ignorant. Sorry to say, but we are ignorant. What type of ignorance do we have? We are ignorant because we have no real consciousness of cause and effect. When we are experiencing a result, we have no idea which were the causes. When we are acting, we have no idea which will be the results. First type of ignorance. Second type of ignorance. We live the world as if it existed in a very solid, objective way. Okay, trying to make it simple. The world where we live, is it the reality? Is it subjective reality or objective reality? What do you think? Subjective, right? I look at this object. What is it? A telephone is my phone. For you, it's your phone. Already different. For one person, it's a phone. For other person, it's whatever else. It can be many ways of seeing and dealing with it. But the point is that it's subjective. Okay? But how do we relate to subjective reality in our daily, not with the minds of philosophy, without analyzing, in our daily life? We deal with the subjective reality as if it is subjective or as if it was objective. Objective, right? So we relate to subjective reality as if it was objective. That's ignorance. Okay? Out of ignorance, it generates what we call selfishness. Selfishness is the attitude in which we generate and, we are always thinking about the I and the my. That's our main priority in everything that we do. If I need to judge if something is good or bad, which is my reference? I and my or the whole? I and my. If I need to make a choice, which is my reference? The I and the mine or the whole? The I and the my. Okay? So this simply means we are selfish. Okay? What is this bringing as a result? When I am in front of a situation that I see as a cause of pleasure. For example, I drink water, and I like the water. Okay? I get the water, I drink the water, I like it. What is my reaction? Attraction, aversion, or indifference? Attraction. So I like, it becomes my water. I really like it. But then, out of this attraction, what I get? Attachment. I cannot let it go. Oh, but the water must take some time and go away. No, 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 you are my water, you cannot go away. Then what happens when comes the jar nearby? And the jar likes the water. But this is my water. And I see the jar as some way of a threat of my water being with me. What do I have? Attraction, aversion, or indifference? A jealousy, aversion. Out of aversion, what happens? I come the jealousy. Then from the jealousy, I have violence, and so on. Okay? Sooner or later, do I need to separate myself from the water or not? Yes. The day I need to separate myself from the water, how will I feel it? Suffering. Okay? And maybe also anger, because I'm going to blame someone why I need to separate myself from the water. One day I will continue to have the water, but the water doesn't make me happy as before. Who's to blame? The water. Okay? All this is result of what? Attachment. The difference between attachment and desire. Desire is where when I project my happiness in something that cannot really sustain it, but something that I do not have. I want the water. And until I don't get the water, I'm not satisfied. The day I get the water, it's transformed into attachment. Okay? When I get in touch with something that I see as a cause of suffering, my reaction is aversion. From aversion we have anger, hatred, many forms of violence, mental, physical, verbal. Okay? And then we have all the other parts that comes together. There is fear, there is miserliness, there is pride. There are so many other ways that comes out of this ways actually trying to be happy. Okay? But, for example, anger. What is anger? Anger, basically for me, is when I am in front of a situation that I see as a cause of suffering and I don't want to suffer. So I want to create distance between myself and that object which I see as a cause of suffering. So I want to create distance of it. So what I do, I find a reaction to send it away. But when I get angry, does it make my suffering to get less? Does it eliminate my problem? When we get angry, we suffer less or we suffer more? So that's why when we get angry, for me, it's like if we take some sign and we show to everyone where it's written, look how ignorant I am. To suffer less, I suffer more. Because why I get angry? Because I don't want to suffer. By getting angry, what happens? I suffer more. Okay? So this is just some examples. The point is, our suffering is coming from our inner conflicts, which is attraction, aversion, jealousy, anger, miserliness, pride, arrogance, and so on, which are coming from the attraction and aversion, which is coming from selfishness, which is coming from ignorance. Okay? Now comes a very important question, which we need to answer it not conceptually, not intellectually. All of this we need to understand from our own experience. Because if I say, yes, the causes of my suffering is my anger and my jealousy and my pride and my miserliness, but you must stop doing this, and I must gain that. You know, I must intellectually have a whole idea of what is right and wrong, but I do not put it into practice in my real life. And here, it's not working. Philosophy, spirituality, it works when we put it into practice. Otherwise, it's just concepts in our mind. So the process of understanding these things is something that we must go through, and it's not something that takes 1 day or 2 days. It takes many years. It takes a long time of looking, reflecting, and slowly, slowly it becomes deeper in ourselves. One day I was in a difficult moment. I told already before, when I was 18. I was in the monastery and I was in a difficult situation because what really triggered my conflict, my crisis, it was not that I was not happy in the monastery. It was that I started to ask myself, why am I here? Okay, the object of Buddhism is to get enlightened. What does that mean? Oh, there is the whole philosophical definition, but really what does it mean? Okay, making it simple from what I understood, enlightened means to eliminate completely our defilements, anger, jealousy, pride, miserliness, and finally ignorance, and to develop at the maximum of our potential love, compassion, wisdom, generosity, humility, and so on, our qualities. But is it possible? At that time, I thought no. So I was in a real trouble because I was dedicating my life for something that I didn't believe. I was there in the monastery, everything nice. I loved the philosophy. We have long debates of philosophy. I loved it. I would stay there until late in the night during the debates. And I liked the ceremonies. I loved my teachers. I liked the life there. But all of this had one purpose, which was enlightenment. And I didn't believe in it. So I am lucky in a way because I am a very slow person in taking deep, strong decisions. You know, like from the Tibetan Ayurvedic medicine, I am the phlegm nature. So things are slowly inside. And normally when I have processes going inside, most people that know me from outside cannot see what is really happening. And I don't talk to anyone. I never ever talked to anyone about what is going inside since I was a small kid. Because until it's not really clear. And sometimes people get a little bit shocked after some time because they say it looks like suddenly something happened, but it's not there. Maybe it took 2 years, 3 years. No? And at that time, I started to question myself, what is enlightenment? Is it really possible? Is it possible really to be happy in this way? So I had the opportunity to talk with some teachers of mine, some of my masters. Basically, I talked with 3 of them, which was to Lama Gangchen Rinpoche. I'd had a very nice talk with His Holiness the Dalai Lama and with my main philosophy teacher, Geshe Kitlyn Tjin. And during all this time I was observing, reflecting, looking. And after maybe 2 years, I got to a conclusion which is, it is possible. Why and how? First thing, we all live in a gradual process. There's nothing as getting enlightened like turning the light on. It takes time. 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, 1 life, 2 lives, 10 lives, 100 lives, I don't know. It takes time. We develop ourselves in a gradual process. It's not like immediate. Depending on how we interact with the world around us. But the main point, which for me was very clear, is it possible to have less anger if we put the right effort? Yes, I believe. I have seen in many people. Luckily, I have many defects, but anger has never been my difficult part. It's really difficult for someone to see me angry. I have other faults. For example, I am an extremely lazy person, but that's another problem. But the point is that it's possible to have less anger or less laziness. It is possible. I have been working on my laziness. And I can tell you, it works. I'm not yet there, but it works. Is it possible to have less attachment? Yes, it is. Not easy, but it's possible. It depends most of all if we put the energy into the right direction. Is it possible to love one person more? In the real sense of love, which means opening our heart towards the other person and wishing the other person to be happy, independently of who he is, where he's from, what he's doing. In Tibetan, it's very clear the difference between the word love and desire. For example, if I say to you, I love you, it means I wish you to be happy. If I say, I need you in order for me to be happy, it means I desire you. Okay? So when someone comes and say, oh, I must have you, you are the source of my happiness, I love you. Pause, 1 minute. Rephrase. You do not love me, you desire me. Okay, maybe you also love me. But in the moment that you say, I wish you to be happy, and I will do everything that I can in order to help you to be happy, okay, you love me. But in the moment you tell me, I must have you nearby me in order for me to be happy, this is not love, this is desire. And very often we have the two together. But it's just two different feelings. Okay? But is it possible to love more people, more sentient beings? To open our heart towards others? Is it possible or not? Yes. So what's the limit of loving others? The limit that we have is when we go beyond our own selfishness and where we are able to love others in an unconditional way. I love you because you exist. That's the limit where we can get, which is basically no limits. What's the limit of eliminating anger? Having no more anger. What's the limit of eliminating insatisfaction? Being fully satisfied. So finally, it is possible to reach enlightenment. It simply is not something that you can buy in the pharmacy, or that you can gain in a weekend course. It's a process for the whole life. And in this process, in Buddhism, it says that we have to be able to reach it. We must dedicate our life to three things, which is making our life meaningful. We're still on the second point. Which is, we need to put our energy into loving ourselves, loving others, and having a correct view of reality. These are the 3 points. Traditionally, they are called the 3 main aspects of the path. What does it mean to love myself? I do love myself. We all love ourselves. Why? Because we want to be happy. But how to love myself in a more coherent way? To really put into practice the love that I have towards myself, what I need to do? I need to accomplish and cultivate what I know that is good for me, and I need to abandon what I know that is harmful. That means loving oneself. How many things we know that are good for ourselves and we don't do? How many things that we know that are harmful for ourselves and we still do? This means not loving ourselves enough. Okay? So, when we say to love ourselves, the first part of the path, traditionally it's called renunciation, which is to renounce suffering and the causes of suffering. There's another name that we can give to it also traditionally, which I prefer to use, which means to love ourselves. Which means really no more excuses. If something is good for me and is not harming others, I do. If something is bad for me, in a middle long term, I don't do. Oh, but the taste is nice. So what? It's like one time I had a friend. Still have this friend. I was talking to her many years ago, and she was in a difficult situation. And she asked me for advice. Actually, for her was a difficult situation. The situation itself was not that difficult, but she was in this situation, so she asked me for an advice, saying, oh, how can I help? How can I deal with the situation? And so on. And I said to her, okay, maybe you do this. And I found a nice solution for her. And she said, oh, this is too difficult. I said, okay. So I thought a lot. I found another solution. I said, okay, then you do this. Oh, this I really don't like. I said, okay. I was thinking again. I found another thing. And I said, okay, maybe you do this one. And she said, oh, this I don't like and it's difficult. And I said, oh, look, then you keep your problem. Oh, but this I also don't want. Then one thing I don't like and it's difficult, it's not an excuse. Otherwise we go nowhere. One time I always remember in my life, there are some moments in our life that marks us, no? I was with Lama Gangchen in Tibet, and then he told me that I needed to study something that I really didn't like doing. And then he told me, oh, you need to study that thing. I was going to Tibet for a study, and he said, oh, you need to study that thing, which was specifically how to make mo. Mo is a Tibetan sort of divination, and I really don't like divinations, basically. Nothing against, but it's not for me. And I said, really, but I don't like this type of things. And he said, why? Do you think in life you can only do what you like? Then I said, okay, I go to learn. Then I learned it and never. Then he thought, oh, you don't need to do it. But I learned how to do it, no? What happened is that to love ourselves, it means basically to do what we really know that is good for ourselves without excuses. We simply need to do it. No excuses. Oh, because I have no time, because I don't want, because it's not good, or whatever other reason we may think. No excuses. We simply say yes or no. So to love ourselves, and it's a gradual process, to really love ourselves well. It takes time. It's not so simple. Second step, to love others. Open our heart to others. And here it is a very simple exercise I would like you to do. Okay? I will tell you one time I did this exercise, and it for me was touching. I was in São Paulo, maybe 1-2 years ago, waiting for a friend outside of his house, and they were building a house nearby. So there was this working guy of the construction with his yellow helmet, and he started looking to me. Normal, look how I'm dressed, it's like people look to me normally. So normally when someone is looking to you and you look to him, what he's doing? Taking the eyes away, But instead he continued to look at me. So I continued to look at him. And we were looking at each other's eyes. And then I start to have this feeling and saying, I love you. I wish you to be happy. I don't know your name. I don't know where you are coming from. I have no idea about any of this. But I deeply wish you to be happy. In other words, I love you. I was not verbalizing it. Otherwise it would be a little bit strange. But I was just saying it. And we stayed for maybe I think almost 2 minutes looking at each other's eyes. And slowly we start to smile, each one, both of us, and we're just looking to each other like this. And it filled up myself with joy for the whole day. And whenever I remember, I'm happy about it. So, what happens basically is that the exercise is, at one time a day, when we are in the restaurant, when we are in the metro, when we are on the road, where we are in work, anywhere, just choose one person and say to this person non-verbally, okay, I love you. Okay, but people that we don't know, it's important that this is people that we are not so used to, okay? So this is just the importance to open our heart daily. And the third point is have a correct view of reality, which means try to relate to reality in a coherent way with what reality actually is. With these 3 points, we make this life meaningful. And the third point, which we will not go into details, which is very simple, is, okay, we make this life a good life. We make it meaningful, and we need to prepare ourselves for our own death. We are all going to die. We need to prepare ourselves for death. When? Now I am 34, I need to prepare for death when I get to my 80s? No. I need to prepare now. Not because I am young that I'm not going to die soon. If death would be looking to me and I said, oh, I am young, death would be laughing and say, because why young people don't die? We are all going to die, and we have no idea when. So we need to prepare. And there are 5 steps to prepare for death. I will just name them. The first one, we need to relate in a healthy way to material things. We need to have material things as a mean and not as a goal. The things that I have a function to me. So I'm not attached to the material things I have. Second point, we need to develop an identity that goes beyond this physical body. A deeper identity that can transcend this life. Third, we need to understand deeply and direct our life that we don't want to be taken and driven by mental defilements such as anger and jealousy and so on. Fourth, to have a positive goal in our life that transcends this life. For example, I never ever want to be separated from love, compassion, wisdom. I want to be in a stable and joyful state. And fifth is the power of familiarization. If I familiarize myself daily with love, with satisfaction, with wisdom, and so on, gradually I will get there. These are the five points that we need to do to prepare for our own death. Okay? So the final thing is, what I believe is that it doesn't matter which is our religion, if we have a religion or if we don't have a religion, which is our culture, where we come from, we want to be happy. So let's do the right thing to be happy. Let's do something that works. That's the main thing. Okay? So, we still have some time left. I would like to open for some questions before we can do a short conclusion.
Zijn er vragen of reflecties of aanvullingen? Ik zie Dirk de hele tijd hier een beetje zo kort en Dirk. Glenn?
I would like
Yes, please.
thank you very much for your
Thank you.
teaching. And I'm trying to write at the same time what you're saying, and I would really like to die in peace. So could you recapture?
Yeah.
Repeat.
1 till 5?
Okay, sure. The first one is called the power of virtue. The power of virtue, it means to relate in a healthy way to material things, which means that we use the material things for the function they have and not simply to own them. Which means I go back home, I look at what I have and I say, what's the utility of this? What's the function? If it has no function, I sell, I give away. Okay? If it has a function, then I keep it. For example, there is an old lady in Brazil, a very good friend of mine, and she has a beautiful collection of jewels. And she's a very generous person, but she was telling one day to me, when I was talking about this teaching, she came one day and said, "Look, I feel a little bit guilty about these jewels I have. It would be much more benefit if I just sell all of it and I give the money to help others and so on. But the truth is that I never wear these jewels. But every once in a while, I open the jewels, I look at them, and each jewels have a memory connected to it. She has no more husband, no more children, everyone died. So there is a memory connected to every object. So I said, there is no problem. What's the function of these objects? The memory that they bring to you. So they have a function. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So,
That helps.
so this is the first power. So this is the first power, okay? This is the first power. The second power is the power of, we call the power of intention, which is the ability to have an identity that transcends this life. Okay? And to make it more clear, there is an exercise that you can do, we can do about it, which is very, very simple. You need to write a letter of introduction of yourself. Okay? Imagine that whoever gets this letter must be able to recognize us in the middle of thousands of people. But there are some rules for this letter. First of all, you need to write by hand. Don't use the computer, okay? We write the letter. In the letter, we cannot say our name. We cannot talk about our body. I cannot say I am a man or I am a woman, I am tall or I am small. We cannot talk about our family. I am the son of, the father of, or whatever. We cannot talk about our profession. I am a doctor, I am a lama, I am a lawyer, I am this, I am that. We cannot talk about our social status. We cannot talk about things that we own. I am the owner of this, I did that, actions that I have done, I've written a book, I've done this, I've done that. We cannot talk about any of this. So someone may ask me, then what am I going to say? We are going to say things such as, I am a person that when I see someone in need, I would do anything to help that person. Instead, I'm just inventing things. Huh? I am a person that if I see someone in need, I try to escape away. I am a person that if anybody talks about me or my family in a nice way, I am so happy. But when they say something negative, I get so angry. We're going to talk about our inner aspects. How do we relate to the world internally? Our emotions, our feelings, that are independent of the actual condition external. So we write this letter. Don't worry about being incoherent, because we are incoherent. Okay? One very important rule of the letter: no one can read it, only ourselves. Why? Because if anybody can read the letter, when we are writing it, we're already worrying, oh, if this person sees the letter, then this thing may be better I don't say. Okay? No one can read the letter but ourselves. When we conclude the letter, we close it. After 6 months, we write another letter. And then we open the one of before and we read it. And slowly, slowly, we learn to know ourselves better. And to have an identity that goes beyond our external part. Okay? The third power is called the power of the antidote. The power of the antidote, it means to recognize that mental defilements are really harming us. And to have the total determination not to be led by them. By anger, by jealousy, by pride, by miserliness, and so on. Because according to Buddhism, one of the worst things that can happen to us when we die is to die with a negative emotion. Okay? There is the whole reasons why, but it's one of the worst things that can happen to us. The fourth power is called the power of prayer, which is to direct ourselves to something positive. What do I want for myself that transcends this life? It's to have positive wishes for ourselves that transcends this life, but not something like, I want to go to paradise that is everything that I don't have in earth that I would like to have. Not this type of wishes. Wishes that transcend this life, but I can have also in this life. Oh, I want to have joy, I want to have full compassion, may I always be with wisdom and satisfaction, and so on. And the fifth power is called the power of familiarization, which means to repeat again and again positive attitudes so that when we die we can have this state of mind. Because in the moment of my death, I cannot say, okay, wait a minute, I'm not ready because I'm having this bad emotion, let's change situation. It's not going to happen like that, right? So or I am familiarized with positive emotions, or they would not come at that moment. So I have the power of familiarization. Okay. That's a lifetime work.
Ja, man.
Ja, Kit.
Heb je ze allemaal opgeschreven?
Ja.
Aan werk.
Nou, dat zijn toch mooie omroepen aan deze punten.
Ja. In onze lessen.
Precies.
Kan je hem doorsturen?
Dat kan ik. Die vraag dan?
Did you write everything? Is it yes? Can you send it to me?
More questions or
Reflection, anything?
add?
You remind me of my, I met Krishnamurti in Rotterdam,
Okay.
40, 50 years ago,
Okay.
or 60 years old almost. And you remind me of my own teacher.
Hij staat er.
He, thank you very much for this teaching, because you bring me back to my two teachers. I was with a meeting in Krishnamurti almost 55 years ago. And yeah, you bring
55 years ago? Are you that old?
Yes, I was 17. I was 17 or 16.
It's one of my oldest teachers.
And he and you brought me back to my black teacher from America, Black Horse Chavez. And a lot of things I remember. And you bring me back to those
Thank you.
teachings. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The one thing I was when I was thinking about, I didn't hear the word beauty. And I was thinking, can I learn and teach myself to see the beauty of death, of my own death?
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Because you didn't mention
Okay.
beauty, because I'm very
Yeah.
busy with beauty at the moment.
Okay.
It's spring.
Okay, for me, beauty is something that makes my mind happy, joyful. Not in a superficial way, but in a deeper way. Okay. Lama Gangchen normally tells me the most beautiful of all beauties is a peaceful mind. No? When we study the process of death, okay, normally if we make, for example, a search in internet by image, death, all the images that come are quite ugly images, most of them. But the image that comes to my mind when I say the word death is a beautiful golden light. When we see the process of death, what happens? Our body loses strength. So as our body loses strength, the gross mind, which is directly connected to the gross body, also loses strength. So all our conceptual part stops functioning. And what remains are our emotional parts, more deep, without so many names and dates and so on, but them feelings. Then the subtle body, the part of our energy, also loses its strength. And together with that, our emotional part also loses its strength. And what remains is what is called our very subtle body and a very subtle mind. So we go back to our essence. Okay? And actually, death is the best opportunity we have in the whole life spiritually. If we know how to use death well, that's why I said the yogis, the great practitioners, they think they fear death their whole life. Not fear in this ways that they are afraid of it, but that they are preparing themselves for death their whole life. But they are very happy when it comes. Because death is the ultimate opportunity of spiritual growth. Why? We have two aspects of our mind. One aspect which is a spontaneous, in Tibetan is called lenkye, and one aspect which is constructed, we call kundak. Constructed aspect of our mind is everything that comes from our culture, the education we receive, and so on. What we need to transform is what is spontaneous, not what is constructed. And the spontaneous is the part that we bring from life to life. But when we try to change the spontaneous aspects of ourselves during life, it's so difficult because it's overwhelmed by the constructed aspects. During death, all of this is not there. We are face to face with ourselves, eye to eye. So at that moment, there are no more distractions. So if we're able to direct ourselves in the correct direction during the process of death, that's the best opportunity we may ever have. And for me, this is extremely beautiful. But you remember me about one thing, as you were talking. I believe personally, and it may be very strange what I'm about to say, I really don't like talking. In the sense that I think verbal communication is one of the worst type of communications that exist. Okay? And for people that knows me in my daily life, I'm really not a person that I'm like, oh, okay, let's have a talk. I really don't like talking. But what happens is that, and that's life. My life is talking, but okay. My point is that when we communicate, the words that we say is just a small part. I believe very much in the intention we put, in the background we have. For example, when I made the prayers in the beginning, to connect with my teachers and the teachers of my teachers, so much that we can bring. The intention we put, the emotions we feel, the fact that, for example, what I said today to you here, for me it doesn't really matter if it's completely true or not true, or it's what I believe, and it was what I tried to put in my own life. And so this is something that it's very important. So when you talked about these two masters, Krishnamurti, I never met him, but I heard many times, I read things. And there are people that are true. The people that really change this world, the people that they are the example of what they talk. And in my very small part, that's what I try to be. Okay, so thank you. Okay. So, we have time for one more question. Otherwise, I would like to do a short conclusion. It's okay. Okay?
There is conclusion.
Yeah, I make one short conclusion. There is two phrases that help me very much in my daily life, and I like to share them with you. Okay? The first phrase was taught to me by a Jewish rabbi. His name is Nilton Bonder. Very great person. And when I met him, I was 13 when he told me this phrase, because my Jewish grandmother brought me to talk with the rabbi after I went to the monastery. Something wrong with my grandson. That's it, someone can say something. So she brought me to talk to the rabbi. And it was an incredible meeting, because the rabbi, he follows the Kabbalah, and he was saying, oh yes, we also believe in reincarnation. So it was quite interesting. But the first thing the rabbi told me, as we entered the room together and we sat down to talk, he looked in my eyes and he told me, if I am I because you are you, and if you are you because I am not I and you are not you. But if I am I because I am I, and if you are you because you are you, then we can talk. Okay? I will repeat again. If I am I because you are you, which means if I act in a way because you are here, I am not I. And if you are you because I am I, you are not you. But if I am I because I am I, and if you are you because you are you, then we are sincere. We are truth, so we can talk. So one thing I really believe, we need to be ourselves in life. It doesn't matter. Let's not try to live the life of other people's, or try to be something else because people are there or whatever. Sure, we need to adapt to others' needs, but we're being sincere with ourselves. This is something that really, for me, helps a lot. And the last thing is one verse that, because as I said before, one of my main defects is laziness. So this verse always helps me. It's from one master called Kitlyn Tjin A Djie, Tibetan master from around 4 centuries ago, and he said, Chego chego samni nishu sung majung majung samni nishu sung aka aka samni nishu sung tetarngangne long rukchu long mise tomba sebe namdaring. In English, it will be something like that. Thinking of doing it, 20 years passed by. I couldn't do it, 20 years passed by. Oh, why I didn't do it, 20 years passed by. In such way, 60 years passed by. That's the biography of an empty life. So if we add to it, not thinking of it, 20 years passed by, we get to 80. Because at that time, life was more or less long 60. But my point is, if there is anything we want to do, we must start today without excuses. Especially if we want to change any attitude within ourselves. If we want to prepare for death, we need to do it today, not tomorrow, and anything else, okay? I would like deeply to thank everyone and make one very small request to any one of you, okay? The request is, please, you don't need to remember my name, you don't need to remember anything else. Only thing I ask you, if there is anything I said that you may think it may be of benefit, please do the best of your efforts to put it into practice. That's the only thing I ask, okay? Thank you very much.